Cosmic Soul family. Ella Ivy here with Astrology. We are beginning a 101 astrology series starting today. So this is an invitation for all of my peeps, people who are interested in astrology, but maybe never knew how to connect to it because it's a very precise language. So if you've been interested in astrology, wanting to understand it more, wanting to understand your own chart, because those of you who have ever seen an astrology chart, you're like, what the hell am I looking at, right? It's symbols, it's numbers, it's numerology. There's so much to it. So I've been passionate about astrology since 2003 when I had my first chart assessment, and this astrologer was able to pinpoint exactly like my configurations, my chart, she was just able to see so much about me. And I'm like, how are you able to do this? And so I've been on this journey, this path, pretty much half of my life. So what I was inspired to do is create a very simple app. It's called AstroLingo. You guys can see it behind me. And today we're going to be actually using the AstroLingo app to understand astrology, to get the basics down. What is astrology? Why do people use this system? And how can you use this system to get a better understanding? I say go inward, right? Mercury retrograde season is just getting ready to move forward here right before this vernal equinox when this is being filmed. So this is for those who are wanting to deep dive into their chart, but in a very simple way. And so I'm going to be screen sharing the app, again, AstroLingo. For those of you who joined, thank you so much for being here. That means you're interested in astrology and you want to learn more about yourself through the language and the system of astrology. That's all it is. It's a system. It's just, why is it such a hot topic right now? Why are people so really getting engaged with astrology? What does it mean? And how I saw it and how I kind of play with astrology is it's a symbolic language. It's a way of noticing patterns in personality, timing, and lived experience. Rather than predicting what will happen, astrology helps describe how different energies tend to move through human life, emotionally, mentally, physically, and relationally. Your birth chart is not a verdict or a label, it's a map. It's one that reflects how you process experience, you respond to change, and you interact with the world around you. So let's see how astrology works. The clearest descriptor that came to me when I was navigating this, why astrology? What does it really do? Well, think of it like a movie because I love movies. I've got, again, my Mercury in the 12th house, which is a Pisces house. So I love cinema. I love, imagery. And so I think of it like this chart is like a stage. Like if we were a movie, right, in our own lives and we were the actors and we were engaging in these experiences in life. So the chart is the stage. It's where the movie is set. And the houses are the different areas of the stage where the scenes happen. So is it happening at work? Is it happening in the family dynamic? Is it happening in your interpersonal relationships? Is it happening in your spiritual nature? Is it happening in your dream state, right? So these are different aspects of where we all as a collective have these elements in our lives where they exist, right? I think of it also like a house. That's why they talk at the house system. You go to the kitchen because when you go to the kitchen, you're making yourself a meal, right? There's certain actions you take when you go to different parts of the houses. When you go to your bedroom, you sleep, you dream, you have intimacy with your partner, right? If you go, to the bathroom, it's excrement, it's very Scorpio, right? So there's different houses, different places in our lives where we do different things. And so the planets themselves are the actors. It's the action we take, right? Wherever we are in this journey of life, the different house systems, whether, again, we're at work, we're at home with our families, if we're out on stage, we're in public, we're in our careers. The planets are the action of how this energy manifests. And then the signs describe how each actor plays their role. So again, I'm prefacing this and using this analogy to a movie is, again, bringing it back to a very, very basic fundamental energy of how astrology works. So in a synopsis, the houses show where something happens in life. The planets show what kind of energy is acting, and the signs show how that energy expresses itself. Okay, moon and rising. Your rising is also called in astrology your ascendant, right? And the ascendant is always going to be right here. So this is going to be like if there's 12 houses in a wheel, the first house is always going to be here. So the ascendant is always going to be to the right ascendant meridian, right ram, Aries of the zodiacal wheel. I got that from Santos Bonacci. I didn't make that up, but I heard him say that and it made a lot of sense, right? So the ascendant right here is how you've come to ascend your energy, right? So the ascendant is, think of like when you ascend, you're ascending through the energy of the sign that's on this cusp. And it's always going to be between the 12th house and the first house. It's going to be right here in the ascendant. This is also the eastern horizon. If you're looking at horizon points, the west and the east, the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west, which is going to be the opposite here in the 7th house, which is called the descendant. So you have the ascending current and then you have the descending current. And that's how astrologically it's almost like polarities. First house is always going to be opposite 7th house. Your second house is always going to be opposite your 8th house, third house, 9th house, and 4th house, 10th house. And then the 5th house, 11th house. And then your 6th house is always going to be your opposite 12th house. Think of it like polarity. But the poles really show where you kind of meet in the middle and how you harmonize the energies. Let's go ahead and hover over the first house. We talked about the ascendant, which is where you've come to ascend or raise your energy or your frequency or your vibration. That's the sign or that's on that. This is where you would find it. And the first house, again, if we're still using the analogy of this world as a play, right? And we are the actors in this game of life, then the house system is where the stage area is set. So in the first house, the stage area is like the entrance to the play. This is where you step onto the stage and you make yourself, you make your first impression into the world. So when people first see you, they tend to see your first house. So you may want to see what the sign is in the first house because that's how you present yourself to the world. Okay, so for me, for example, I've got Sagittarius on the ascendant moving into the first house. I've got my Capricorn second house. I've got Aquarius third house and so forth, right? Because it follows the zodiacal wheel. And so when people first see me, the impression that I make is a very big personality. I was a bartender for many years. I was always very dynamic. I was always very people friendly. I was very curious about people and wanting to know, like, where did you come from? Where have you traveled? What do you do? And so it made me really good in that field of bartending. And interestingly enough, since I am Sag rising and going into the first house, Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter, the biggest planet in the zodiac. Interestingly, I'm a 6-foot tall woman, right? I'm a big being. So when people first meet me, they meet the Jupiter aspect of me, gregarious, lively, inquisitive. Sometimes I blurt stuff out and I don't really mean it and I'm still learning how to rectify that, but also still being myself. So again, this is not about shaming or it's just about understanding your personality quirks because we all have different ways that we show up in the world. And so the first house is like the entrance of how you make your first impression. Now, the actor behind the first house is going to be Mars. And Mars is the one who takes action, right? It brings courage, it moves things forward. And interestingly enough, right now, Saturn, our structure planet, and Neptune, our spiritual planet, is both in Aries. So we might be called to show up and initiate what? New structures about what? Our spiritual practices, our spirituality, how we connect to the divine energies, right? So this might be, if you're drawn to this channel right now, and it's also a new moon in Pisces, right? Beginning a new spiritual journey. This may be a system that calls to you, that you're drawn to again, know thyself, get deeper into your own gnosis, get deeper into your own divine connection to divine intelligence, right? Because that's how I see this system. So again, if you're beginning on this journey and you're here with me, thank you so much for being a part of this. And for those of you just joining, we're learning Astrology Basics 101. We're starting to look at the wheel, what it means, the characteristics. And so moving forward, again, if the world was a stage and this was, the house system is the entrance, is where the stage is set, and then the actors that play within these systems would be the planets. Well, how the actor is directed to play their part. So Mars is just the one who takes action and brings courage, but how that action is played is going to be based on the signs. So Aries rules the first house. They talk about rulerships when you're studying the language, because it's a very precise language when using astrology. So for Aries rules, right, the first house of the sign in the zodiac, and how Aries likes to act or play. It's very bold. It's confident, spontaneous. Think of like if you're looking at the life cycle of a human, it's the baby. It's firstborn. So right now you might want to sit and think about all the Aries people you know in your life, or if you know an Aries in your life, and just think of the characteristics they hold. They like to be first, right? Tend to be competitive. Sometimes they scream for a lot of attention, like me, I am. And again, we all have this somewhere in our chart. It just depends on where you were born and the time and date you were born. That's also going to affect your house system. But again, this is a very basic understanding of how astrology works, right? And then we looked here too for the planetary systems on the bottom, on the yellow, where it says Mars rules Aries and traditionally co-rules Scorpio. So we also have what are in astrology called co-rulership. That means that it not only rules one sign, but it also rules two signs. Before they discovered Pluto, Scorpio was actually ruled by Aries, which is the 8th house. And so it's going to be expressed a little bit differently, where in Aries it's direct and pioneering. In Scorpio, it's going to be more strategic and penetrating and deep and wanting to get to the truth of the matter. So in the movie of life, the first house is where Mars acts in the style of Aries. Okay, and you guys can screenshot this. Or again, if you want to support the channel, it's just a $6.99 payment to get the app yourself, so that you can start playing with it and start deep diving into these, your own constructs here. So let's on over the first house. This is the second house. So the stage area, or the part of the house system that the second house represents, is your resource room, your money room, where you gather what sustains you and holds value. So Venus rules this house. It's the love, money, self-worth, beauty, what you find beautiful, what you find valuable. So that's the stage area of the house. The actor that rules that house, again, is Venus. Venus is the actor who appreciates beauty, seeks comfort, and knows what matters. And then how Venus, or the actor in that particular planet, plays that part is in Taurus. And in Taurus, Venus plays steadily and sensually. It's very grounded, very patient, and it likes to build security for itself. So when we think of the second house, think of that your money and value house. And then again, we also talked about co-rulership. Venus also rules the 7th house, which is Libra, which is right over here. Okay, it's called a co-rulership. And so in the second house, Venus is going to show up as sensual and earthy. It likes to cook. It likes food. It considers, likes to be intimate with a meal, sharing something, again, that's taste, touch, smell. It's all the senses, right? But in Libra, it's about your relationship, your interpersonal relationships, and how you love beauty and art and things. So see, it's a little bit of a different frequency, but Venus is still showing up, again, in what you love and what you value. So in the movie of life, the second house is where Venus acts in the style of Taurus. Okay, so we're going to keep on moving. Next, going into the third house. This is the house of where we think and where we communicate, right? This is the conversation house. So think of like the living room, where we all gather together and we share ideas and we connect, we play games, right? This is also very third house matters. And the actor in this particular house is in Mercury. Mercury is the actor who thinks, communicates, and processes information. Okay, and how the actor plays, or the sign that rules this particular house, is Gemini. And in Gemini, Mercury plays curiously and quickly, versatile, social, and it's always learning. It's always thinking, it's asking questions, right? But again, we talked about co-rulerships. Mercury also rules Virgo, which is the 6th house right here. Okay, so it's got a dual rulership, and again, it expresses a little differently in each sign. So in Gemini, it's quick, it's social, it likes to talk and gather information. It's kind of gossipy and chatty. But in Virgo, it's sixth house, it's more analytical, it's more precise, it's more like systems analyst, right? So it's thinking with a purpose, to where in third house, it just thinks to chat and talk and share information, right? So it's a little bit of a different frequency. So again, in the movie of life, the third house is where Mercury acts in the style of Gemini. Okay. So we're moving on now to the fourth house. Now, the stage area of the fourth house, this is like your private quarters, your bedroom. This is where you need to feel safe. It's almost like your office space, right? Your meditation space, your altar where you have. This is where kind of the fourth house rules if we're looking at a house system. And you need to feel safe, to feel emotionally balanced. This also historically rules the house of family. So mother and father. Some people say it's the mother, but I see it as the parents, right? Parental influence. And then the actor that plays in this energy is the moon. The moon rules the fourth house. And the moon is how we feel. It's our emotional needs. It's what we connect to intuitively, right? But it's like behind the scenes where the sun shines and you can see full illumination. The moon is what's hidden, right? So this is all fourth house matters. And the sign that rules this particular house is called Cancer. And in Cancer, the moon likes to play protectively and sensitively, very caring, very intuitive, wants to create nurturing and sanctuary where you feel cozy, right? So this is the part of the house system that represents that energy. And again, in the movie of life, the fourth house is where the moon acts in the style of Cancer. Okay, so we're going to be moving forward. Fifth house in the stage area of life, the creative house. This is where talk about the creative studio, right? If you have an art studio or you're a sculptor or you just like to play and express and enjoy, be highly creative, this is the fifth house. The actor that plays in this fifth house is the sun. The sun is the one that radiates vitality, expresses your core self, and it loves to create, right? It's just creation for creation process. It likes to be seen. It's almost like the showman of the zodiac. And how the actor plays in the fifth house is through Leo. And Leo, it's warm, it's generous, it's confident, dramatic, heart-centered, sometimes in its disagreeable state, because again, we all have agreeable and disagreeable aspects in each sign. It could be self-centered. It could be wanting to be the star of the show, wanting all the attention, right? So again, we're looking at the fifth house. The actor is the sun, and how the actor plays is it through Leo. Okay, so in the movie of life, the fifth house is where the sun acts in the style of Leo. Okay, keeping it very basic, very, very fundamental. This is the fundamentals. So the sixth house is the daily practice room. This is where routines are built, health is tended, and service is offered. Think of it like your workout room, right? Or your office space where you're in service every day, how you show up in your work and service to others. Now, the actor that plays its role, that rules that house, is Mercury. And again, Mercury is the actor who organizes, refines, and pay attention to detail, right? So it's kind of nitpicky in its agreeable state. It's perfectionism. In its disagreeable state, it's perfectionism, depending on how it shows up, right? So it's people who are fickle, who like things precise. Think about, if you walk into a space and you're just like, I have that piece there for a reason. That's very Virgo, right? Very tidy, detail oriented. And then in Virgo, again, Mercury plays that role. That's how the actor plays that. But it likes to be helpful, right? It likes to be practical, and it's always improving systems. There's always things that can be done better, right? That's why sometimes in its disagreeable state, Virgo can be seen as the perfectionist that's never satisfied. But Virgo in its art is always just wanting to make things better, right? So again, we talked about co-rulerships or dual rulerships. Excuse me. We also showed that Mercury also rules Gemini, the third house, and expresses a little differently in the third house, where it's just mostly sharing information and thinking and sharing ideas. Where sixth house is like, okay, we're sharing these ideas, but how do we make things better by having these better ideas? If that makes any sense, okay? So now we're going to the seventh house. And now the seventh house is where our partnerships are, right? So if you think of a house system, this is where all your relationships, for better or worse, good or bad, it's going to show up. Whether you have great friends or lovers or romantic partnerships or work acquaintances, this is also too where you can have enemies, right? And people that you disagree with. It's all our relationships, for better or worse. And again, the actor that rules this particular house is Venus. And we said that Venus has a dual rulership. It rules the second and the seventh. So Venus here in the seventh house wants harmony within relationships, right? It wants values and fairness. It wants things to be equal, right? It's the balance. If you think of like the scales in the seventh house, it wants things to always be equitable. And so in Libra, Venus plays diplomatically and gracefully, considerate, aesthetic, relational. It likes things beautiful. It likes harmony within relationships. It doesn't really like conflict at all. So again, we all have these aspects somewhere within our chart. It just depends on where this is showing up. Again, this is a very basic 101 foundation astrology chart wheel and their meaning, so you can get a stronghold if you're studying astrology and on how these energies play out. And so you can understand your chart better if you're again into astrology or wanting to learn more astrology. So we talked about this is dual rulership in the seventh house. So Venus also rules Taurus. We talked about second house. And again, it's Venus is going to express itself a little different. So in the second house, Venus wants security, money, values, what they value. And in the seventh house, it's about valuing relationships, right? So what's valued in the seventh house is your interpersonal relationships, where in the second house, what's valued is your money and how you spend and what you spend your money on. If that makes any sense. Then this is the transformation chamber. This is also the bedroom, right? Because this is where we merge with others. This is intimacy. This is where you get deep, right? This is where you exchange not only your physical body. Taurus is the opposite, right? Who you love, but who you exchange your love with, right? So the actor that rules the eighth house is Pluto. And Pluto is the one who likes transformation. It faces the shadows. It regenerates through endings, right? It's the birth and death cycle within our birth charts, right? And so that's what the eighth house represents. And again, the planet who rules the eighth house is Pluto. Now, how that energy is played out is through the sign of Scorpio. And Scorpio, like, it's powerful, it's penetrating, it's truthful. Think of like the alchemist of the zodiac, right? The one who looks at things beneath the surface. You can't really lie to a Scorpio because Scorpio is always wants the truth of things. So again, we talked about there's a co-rulership, and Mars, before they discovered Pluto, was the co-ruler of the eighth house. So again, both wants intensity, Mars, action, desire, but in Scorpio, it's more investigative and research mode, okay, if this makes any sense. And now we're moving to the ninth house. So the ninth house is where we explore. This is like the learning, where think of like philosophy. I think of like if you are an archaeologist and you like history and discovering things of old ancient relics and ruins, this is very much higher learning, very Sagittarius. And the actor that plays in this particular house is Jupiter. Again, it's the largest planet in the zodiac. So it's expansive, it grows, it seeks wisdom to find meaning, right? So in the third house, the opposite, Gemini, where you're gathering information and data and just, receiving intel, right? Consuming data and information. How you express that information into wisdom is the opposition going into the ninth house. So the actor that plays in that house is, again, Sagittarius. It loves to be, it's an adventurist. It's optimistic by nature. It's philosophical. It likes freedom. It likes truth seeking. It likes to explore. So long distance travel. If you guys are inclined to travel a lot and to move around, you probably have a lot of Jupiter, Sagittarius in your chart. So again, this all depends on your own chart system. And then the Jupiter, the planetary ruler, is Sagittarius. And again, it also has a co-rulership with Pisces. So before they discovered Neptune, Jupiter was the ruler of Pisces as well. So there was a co-expression there. And again, it's going to express a little differently. So in Sagittarius, it's more adventuresome and expansive. But in Pisces, it's more compassionate, transcendent, right? It's a little softer. It's expanding into the unconscious realms where Jupiter actually wants to expand in the earth plane and see everything that's on the earth, right? But in Pisces, it's about wanting to explore your inner depths and your inner unconscious realms, which can't be seen. Okay, so now we're going to the 10th house. Now, this is the place where you want to show up in your career, right? Your authority. This is where your reputation is built on how good you do your job in the 6th house, right? So I think of like the 6th house is your work and service to others. Since I used to work in a restaurant, I think 6th house is where you're the server. And then the 10th house is where you actually become the owner of the restaurant, right? So just think of it that way. And the actor that rules this house is Saturn. It's the one who structures, commits, and builds something to last, to long term, right? Legacy building. This is what happens in the 10th house. This is where this energy is structured. And then the sign, the actor that plays out this energy is Capricorn, right? And so Capricorn is very strategic, it's very patient, and it's earth oriented. And this is where we get our discipline, our responsibility, our ambitions all come from where Capricorn is our chart, right? So again, this is just ideas, words to describe the energies of this house system. As we're going into the 11th house, now this is where our groups, organizations, big businesses, so when you go to work, say you work for a big company, right? This is the 11th house where this where community forms. Innovation happens. This is where the future of humanity is envisioned because it's a humanitarian house. Now, the actor that rules or plays its part in this particular 11th house is Uranus. And it's the one who breaks patterns, who brings innovation and envisions new possibility. It wants to do things different. It wants to bring change, right? So where Saturn is more structural and wants to maintain and stay the same, Uranus is like, no, I want to change things up. I want to do things differently. And then the actor that plays in that particular house system is Aquarius, right? So Aquarius, Uranus plays independently and inventively. It's revolutionary. It's collective minded. It's free thinking. And so we've got right now Pluto in Aquarius, which a lot of astrologers are talking about. So you're starting to see people using more advanced technology like AI. This is also in the house of Uranus and Aquarius, right? And so again, we look at the rulership, the modern ruler of Uranus, is Aquarius. But again, before they discovered Uranus, Saturn was actually the co-ruler, right? So again, you want to deep dive into the meanings of Saturn and Uranus because that's where Aquarius is colored by, right? It kind of takes on characteristics of both of these planets. And so Aquarius, visionary ideals, it's like it wants to have visionary ideals, but also practical application on how to bring those ideals into fruition, right? So for 12th house, this is your quiet sanctuary. This is your meditation chamber. This is where you go into the cave and you meditate for hours, right? This is where you go to your churches, your mosques, or your, different religious institutions. This is where you go to pray, right? And connect to your own divine nature through this house. So this is where unconscious patterns surface, where you rest, and where you really just connect to the divine through your unconscious realms, right? And the actor that plays in this house is Neptune. And again, Neptune is very imaginatory. It dissolves boundaries. It connects to you and I are one. It connects to your spiritual nature. And then in Pisces, how the actor is playing or how the actor that plays that role is in Pisces. And so Neptune plays compassionately and mystically, empathetic, dreamlike, transcendent, right? Pisces, think of like the dreamer, the creator, the visionary, and not just visionary, it's more Aquarius, but more of the artist, right? The singers, the artists, the ones that actually can connect to divine spirit and not necessarily have words, but they create images, right? And again, we talked about the co-rulership. So before they discovered Neptune, Jupiter was actually a co-ruler of the 12th house, along with Pisces, right? So again, they connect both to the mystical and the meaningful if you're making connections to the dual rulerships. Okay, so this is the house system. Wanting to deep dive more into their own chart, get to know themselves a little better by understanding the symbols, the meanings. So I have a couple of free offerings. Please check out the link in my bio. I have a free Astrology 101 PDF, but I also have this app that I'm offering for the collective. If you want to deep dive more into it, please connect to this channel. We're going to be doing more on Wednesdays. This Teaching Wednesdays is ruled by Mercury. So it's connecting to the mind and sharing new information, possibly in a different way. Please, if you want to download the app, just out 89 in prototype mode, but it's got information that I'd love to share with you. If you're wanting to learn astrology, want to get deep diving into yourself, into your own gnosis, this is just an offering for this channel. I'm very passionate about astrology, and it's helped me so much in my growth and my spiritual journey and learning to be less judgmental of myself and others, because I understand the language and that we all have a process and we all have different archetypical energies that move through us. And so this is a way to help us understand and understand ourselves in a, again, very, very loving way and a very neutral way. And so thank you, big guy, for being here and for joining the conversation. And again, for anybody that's here, I also am going to be recording this and putting this onto my other social platforms. So I'll be doing this in sound bites. So if you guys, again, want to continue studying, want to learn astrology, want to learn what these symbols mean, because it could be overwhelming, right? But again, the attempt of AstroLingo, the app for livzenastrology, is to help you integrate it in a very easy way, in a way that that makes sense and that you can connect to, right? So I just really want to thank you guys again. If you're here, big guy, if you're here and you want to join, put in your top 3, because we're building community here. We're learning to speak the language to one another and eventually help go into some private conversations where we can look at each other's charts and maybe kind of start diagnosing and giving each other opinions about what we see in the chart, right? Because this is also about self-gnosis, right? We're transcending the need for somebody else telling you who you are. This is about stepping into sovereignty, and you tell yourself by learning the system who you are. So it is definitely a journey into knowing thyself. And I again, if you're here part of this conversation, thank you so much for being here and connecting. And I'll be here every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. for more astrology basics. If you want to reach out and check out the link in my bio too, if you want to get this app or you want any of my free offerings, you can check that out there too. And also I do chart sessions as well. So if you're vibing with this channel, if you're vibing with my energy, and you just want to connect, please reach out. I'd love to be able to share these things with you real time. So all right, guys, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Again, Wednesdays, every Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. for more Astrology 101 basics using the AstroLingo app here that I created. And yeah, I hope you guys found some value in what was shared today. All right, family, so much love. I'll see you on the next live. Oh, also, too, we're doing metaphysical hours on Fridays. So this is at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for those that are wanting to deep dive and get into more of the metaphysics of the energy right now. Then that's something that we're offering here at the channel as well. So that'll be also this Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for metaphysical hour. Come bring your questions, come bring your own awareness. Again, we're sharing the energy. Right now is such a potent time. We've got this new moon in Pisces right now. It really is about stepping into our spiritual natures and being our most divine connected aspect to source, whatever that is for you, God, divine intelligence, source energy, divine creator, whatever language you use that connects you to your own divinity. So that's the intention. Thank you guys so much for being here. So much love, and I'll see you on the next conversation.